Hi folks, I'm Dachshund Wedge and I'm on a loading screen. But in a minute, we are going to take a look at the photo mode in Forza Horizon 5.
You're not gonna believe your eyes when you see this! Keep going!
Okay, they're hyping it up, it better be good. Penguins! Uh-oh. Okay, that's Crash 2. Okay, so I did manage to get through the crashes. I took about 6 tries going through the intro to get there. In the end, I had to go into Windows tasks and remove basically any gaming related background process, RTX voice, my OBS, my antivirus, had to remove basically everything, and then once I did that, I did actually eventually get into the game. So now we can actually take a look at photo mode. A photo mission? That's sort of interesting if they have photo missions. Hit that up next. First, there you go. So photo mode is up on D-pad. If you didn't feel like pressing all the buttons on your controller and seeing which ones worked, that's the one that works, at least for me. Okay, so that's interesting. I'm looking at the ground. If you notice, when we sit here, it actually blurs. It has like motion blur effects. Looks like there's an effects mode for that, so that's cool. But when we move, you can see what it looks like static. It looks like it applies that after the fact, which is what I would expect. Pitch, yaw, roll, that's sort of interesting that it gives me all that, although it sort of feels like useless information. Triggers are up and down, that's normal. Sticks control, that's normal. Reset cosmetic damage, don't need to do that, although it's nice. Hide UI, so you can take a print screen if you want. The effects mode. Oh my goodness. Oh, they have shutter speed. I love that. I was just thinking to myself with something like Far Cry or Riders Republic, it would be great to have a shutter speed slider. It's a bit weird that the shutter speed is inverted. So shutter speed, how quick your shutter closes, will determine the amount of motion blur. So this sort of makes sense for a video game, that increasing shutter speed to 100 makes more blur. However, that's actually inverted. Shutter speed being slower causes more blur. So lower on the shutter speed bar is actually a faster shutter speed. 0 is like instant, and then 100, I don't know what it would actually be like, but probably less than a second at most, it seems like. But yeah, shutter speed is really blur. Focus mode tracking, panning. Okay, that makes sense. So the idea is if you're tracking the car for a second, the ground is going to blur. If you're panning, that means the ground is going to stay still and the car is going to be the thing in motion. That makes sense. So there's definitely some interesting stuff you could do with that in terms of stylizing your photos, and I do like the lights blurring. It's definitely something to keep in mind for like nighttime, city shots, things like that. Very cool. Very cool. That's awesome. That's actually excellent. Focus. So normally to test this, you'd get up really close and see if anything goes out of focus. Maybe the background gets a bit blurry, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't see what the difference between those is yet. Exposure, how bright it is. Aperture. We probably have to change that for the focus to matter, right? That's what the focus is. So aperture slider actually makes sense. Bigger aperture means shallower depth of field, which is what we see. Aperture goes to 100, which is not real aperture numbers. Normally they're f-stop numbers. And so lower aperture means tighter hole that lets the light through. So there is a longer depth of field. So you can see as we go up, the Horizon Mexico sign will get out of focus. You can see the front is a little bit out of focus too. And it sort of only will have the part you're pointed at in focus. And then the shorter the depth of field is, the less will be in focus. So if we go down really tight in our aperture, something like that, I assume focus will move the depth of field center forward and back. Let's see how right we are. Yep, so if we move it here-ish, we start to get the tire, the front tire in focus. That's sort of neat. And the background is out of focus. And then if we go all the way back, we'll probably get the Horizon sign in focus. Yep. And the car is out of focus. Cool. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Focus didn't do anything because aperture was too small. Bokeh is, so you can see how the blur happens when we have depth of field like that. Let's turn the focus a bit down so it's not quite as blurry. You can see when we change that how it generates the blur. It goes in circles, has little circles. If you look at the bokeh, go to diamond, it does little diamonds. If you do pentagon, looks like it does pentagon, hexagon, hexagon, yeah. So you can see it just affects how the out of focus parts show up, sampling fast, quality. Oh, so if you really want a good quality image with the bokeh and the blur, you turn the quality on. If you're just trying things out, you want fast. So tip from the start is basically always have it on fast, and then when you're ready to take the shot, go to quality. That makes sense to me. Wonder how many times I'm going to forget that. Probably a lot. Contrast, color, brightness. I assume they all do what they say they're going to do. Sepia. Assume that's like a filter effect. Yep. Sort of brownish desaturation. Vignette is good. So this is darkening and desaturates the corners. It sort of gives it, drives attention to the center of the photo. Sort of a natural effect of a lot of lenses. So that's why you see it. Temperature. Typically warmer colors are like your oranges and your reds, and your cooler colors are like your blues and your greens. So most photo editing things have a temperature gauge, which lets you warm up the photo or cool down the photo to give the mood you want. So yeah, temperature going up makes it warmer. Temperature going down makes it cooler, gets more blue. Makes sense. It's about what you want. Use that to set the mood of your photo. Car headlights enabled. That's cool that it allows that. Again, good for nighttime. Drivers enabled. Oh, it has to be stationary to disable that. That's interesting. Crowd. Disable the crowd if you don't want it. Creatures. Okay, cool. Makes sense. I like that. X is focus. Oh. X is autofocus. So if I shoot here, it focuses on the tire. Then if I go and look at the horizon, it autofocuses on that. It has a little trouble with that, as a lot of cameras do, but that's pretty cool. This is the first time I've seen autofocus in a game. I will say that Riders Republic did have this sort of depth of field thing with focus, but was not nearly as good about it as this game is. It's really nice that it has the option to both focus and change the area of focus. That's something that Riders Republic did not do. You are always focused on the character, so that's pretty awesome. There aren't as many filters so far, although vignette style, we haven't tried that yet. And then color. Okay, so that's really saturation. So you can really like crank up the saturation, give it some vignette. And then we want probably a bit more in focus. Okay, so yeah, we can do something like this. Yeah, this isn't a great photo, but it's a good way to just like play around with some of the settings, and then we'll autofocus on like the door. Okay, that didn't autofocus like I'd hoped. Something like that. So you get the headlight and the wheel, something like that I think is cool. We've got the vignette. What's the vignette style? In effects is the right button, top vignette, circle, side, top, circle. Okay, so the vignettes are circle around the edges. You can see just the corners, left and right sides, and then top and bottom sides of the screen. Cool, that makes sense. Yeah, I think this is really good. I would say, oh, and it has presets? That's very cool. I can't go back now. So that's a problem. Yeah, okay, so the presets, okay, we're back at custom, but I think that's because we started changing things. I think, you know, we should try not to do that in the future. So yeah, the preset changing removed all our settings, I think, which is unfortunate. Couldn't seem to go back to it. The silver blending in with the clouds is not great. I don't like that, but I'm just messing around with the photo mode right now, so that's okay. Also, just something to keep in mind that that silver and very reflective things with the clouds like that is just going to look white on white, which is not great. Go to quality, and then we'll take a photo. One thing I don't like is that I have this circle in the front rather than my grid. I normally like using the grid. If you're taking photos of cars, it's less important, but having the actual thirds grid does help with composition a bit. Basically never turn it off on other games and in real life, so it's a bit weird that it's just not an option at all here. It's just the circle. Take photo. Oh, and it adds a watermark. Save. Save new photo. Okay, I guess we shared it. Okay, so apparently the way to do it is to download a third-party app called Forza Hub that allows you to save your photos. I'm not doing that. That seems silly. Just let me save my photos, guys. Riders Republic also didn't have an option to save your photos, so workaround is hide your UI. Boom, you got your photo. Then you can do Control-Alt print screen and just paste that into your favorite editing program. I use GIMP. It's a free editing software similar to Photoshop. Does the exact same thing. Works fine. Cool. So we got the photo. That's good. And we got a good overview of the photo mode. Overall, pretty good photo mode. Wish it had the grid. There's a zoom. How do we zoom? Oh. So you can zoom with the, and tilt with the arrow pad. The arrow buttons, not the joysticks, but the actual control pad buttons. So yeah, looks good. I really like it. Honestly, I think it's probably one of the better photo modes that exists. Just in general, it's really, really good. The zoom and pitch and yaw and roll thing, I don't know why that's there. Probably doesn't need to be there. Although maybe they have a reason, who knows. The effects are great. There aren't the typical filters that you see on a lot of the video games that have photo modes, but the ability to change contrast, saturation, brightness, temperature, vignette, and sepia should let you do basically anything you need to do in terms of filtering and actually give you a more granular control. So I actually like that. I think that's fine. I think having a shutter speed is excellent. I think that's great. Shutter speed and having awesome depth of field changes is exactly what you want in a video game about taking photos of cars that are moving. I think that's great. So overall, really happy with it, really excited.